Welcome to the CyberGov podcast, where you'll learn how to build a cybersecurity strategy that will help you earn more revenue across your government contracting business. All right, welcome back to the CyberGov podcast. Today, sitting down with a special guest, Dr. Gavriel, CEO of VisioneerIT. I mean, this is a great opportunity. I met Dr. Gavriel, of course, through LinkedIn, but we were able to catch up face to face in real life. So I've actually seen him in person. Like, this is a real deal. Dr. Gavriel, if you wouldn't mind, tell the folks what you do and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. So I'm the CEO of VisioneerIT. We're based here in the DC area. I founded the company after I retired out of federal service, out of Department of Commerce to be more specific. And before I actually ended up going to the Department of Commerce, I worked for companies like Gavriel and Hamilton, Northrop Grumman, and a couple of other large enterprise firms that we all know about that are based here in the DC area. But I got my start in cybersecurity about 2 decades ago. And I've been in the industry so long, I've seen it evolve. So it's really interesting to see where we are now. And I'd say one of the reasons why I even started and went down this road of founding VisioneerIT was because I saw a lot of organizations that got burned by cyber threats that they weren't even prepared for. Right? And I think we see a lot of that in the industry, folks ending up on the front page of the Washington Post, and they had no idea how they got there. Well, they know how they got there, but it was a surprise. And so I've seen how technology can either make or break an organization, and even the organization's future, right? And so that really is what led me to start VisioneerIT. And I've always been fascinated with technology, fascinated with AI, emerging tech, what have you, and how it can really transform a company. But one of the things that I noticed, especially in government and in critical industries, is that they have a struggle balancing innovation as well as security, right? And that's where my team comes in. That's the problem that we technically solve for. We're really helping them confidently adopt new technology, meanwhile still protecting their infrastructure, their reputation, and digital assets.
That is a great answer. And it made me think about something when you said innovation in cybersecurity. A lot of times when we talk about cybersecurity, it is really based around cybersecurity versus convenience. But adding in that other piece around cybersecurity and innovation, it's hard for cybersecurity to keep up with that innovation. So that is exactly, I'm seeing that picture now. I'm seeing that vision, right? Visionary. I'm seeing that vision where your company comes in to help government contractors and the government play a part when it comes to cybersecurity, and then that innovation. So that's spot on. Definitely spot on.
Because one other thing I do want to say here too is that, a lot of, whether it's federal government, state and local, even just regular commercial companies, they're trying to figure out how to actually modernize their IT systems, et cetera, and get their whole entire team working as one cohesive unit, right? So there's a couple of ands here, and ensure that it's secure and have processes and procedures. So there's a whole lot to that organizations, whether it be commercial or public sector, really have to contend with. And then there's that human element, that human piece of it. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a few moments.
Absolutely. That is a lot to contend with. As a CEO that is doing that, how do you even think about or wrap your head around all of those different things? Like we'll get to that. So I'll leave that part alone. I'll leave that part alone for a second. There is something I want to touch on, which has been a buzzword, I'd say, over the past 6 to 9 months. Acronym CMMC. I mean, I know you know it was coming. Everybody knows it was coming. I saw something the other day, and a gentleman said CMMC is a scam. And I was
I saw
thinking,
that too. That was on LinkedIn.
yes. So you saw that, right? CMMC is a scam. And I was thinking, whether you like it or not, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. It is here. It relates to compliance. And this is something that you're going to have to do and contend with. So I just thought about that, and I was thinking, even if you don't like it, you don't have to be in that space. But for those of us who are in that space, right, that are small businesses, even small to medium-sized businesses, when they're looking at trying to achieve the CMMC compliance or understand it, how can they overcome that to be competitive in the government space?
Well, before I answer that, I want to say something about that comment, or that post rather, on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it, and I think there was maybe 100, 200. I mean, there was a lot of comments.
Absolutely.
It might even have been 300 comments. It was a lot, which is what made me click on it, because I think it was trending. But with that being said, when you really look at people who make those types of comments, I believe that his organization, or their organization, I don't know if it was male or female, whichever, but I think that their challenge is that they are trying to figure out how to comply. And at the end of the day, again, I don't know his or her story or challenge with their company, organization, whatever, but I think that person is not unique in their experience of complying from a security perspective, and that what I really heard was fear, right? And I think that there's a lot of companies who are scared, fearful about what this really means to truly comply, because there's a cost to adoption, right?
Yes.
There's a
that was in the
cost
comments.
to compliance. There's a cost to doing business. We're finding that a lot of organizations were not embracing security in the way in which they should have. And so now they're playing catch up, because they were able to, I don't want to say skirt the system, but to kind of, duck and hide a little bit, because, if you, as an example, have a cleaning company, as an example, you're not touching IT, you're not doing any of those things. And so you don't really understand what CMMC is. You really don't probably even understand what security really means for you, let alone at large, right, to other organizations. Absolutely. And so that is the challenge. And those people, in furtherance of that, what's scary is that those people are also making it difficult for people to want to do business with them, because now you're guilty by association, right? So how are you going to identify your next best teaming partner if you really want to work with them, however, they refuse to comply, right? So it's I think that Absolutely. It's going to allow all of us to really level set and look to the man to the left and look to the man to the right that you're going to want to team with on some of these opportunities, and say, do you value security, right? Do we share the same core beliefs around compliance, not just for my network and my system, but also when we're talking about, federal government, right? We have some systems, that we need to make sure we're protecting, at all costs. And so that's the challenge. Again, that's what I heard. That's what I read through in his comment and some other comments beneath that. But, we work with a lot of smaller businesses, and they tend to glaze over when it comes to CMMC, security, looking at, what it really means to comply. And I think that the alarming thing is that they don't really have a dedicated IT team. They don't have the budget. let alone even the bandwidth, because they're pretty lean, right? And so they're trying to also compete with larger organizations like the Booz Allens and things like that, but they can't. So it ends up being a catch 22, right? You have to comply, but how do I comply? How can I afford to comply? What does this mean over a long term? Because it's not just about, complying right now, it's about ongoing compliance. There's a ton of documentation out there that can help a lot of these companies, especially if we're talking about level ones, right? There's a lot of
Hmm.
documentation out there, even on our website too, that helps them prepare for, especially the level ones. Those are the ones that we really think could use a lot of assistance. And the cost of compliance at level one is obviously significantly less than at a level two, right? But
Sure, sure.
I know we know it can be very overwhelming when they're really trying to interpret it. But I think we really try to make sure that they know, especially for us with VisioneerIT, we're not auditors. We're not coming in there checking off every. No, we're here to be your partner in success,
Hmm.
and we're teaming with them to ensure that they understand what this really means, and not just going through the activities, but really adopting a new mindset and habits when it comes to security. I think we can all agree that humans typically are the weakest link most of the time, and so ensuring that your teams are going through doing security awareness training, they understand all the policies, procedures, things like that, so that as they're taking on a whole new security mindset, because it's really what it is, that they realize that security really needs to be baked in like eggs and not just like icing on the cake. And
True.
so in
Very true.
practice, what does that really look like? Because now for those companies who are deciding to embrace, or not deciding, I mean, you have to comply, right? Especially if you're going to do business with the federal government, that now being level one, level two means that you technically have a competitive advantage. And I think when we think about government contracting and opportunities and procurement and all of that, how are you really distinguishing yourself online, or not online, but distinguishing yourself from your competition? This is one. This is one of those things that you can say, pull out your back pocket. Hey, we're compliant. We value security. As I mentioned before, we value security. We have things in place, guardrails in place, uh,
Hmm.
and now we're value aligned with whomever we decide to team with, partner with, and we can show the government this ongoing compliance, and that it is a core value of our company.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think you nailed it. Like, now, the reason I'm saying that is so many things that you said that could be, in my opinion, like quotable, from even stemming back to when you started down the road around the LinkedIn post and understanding or hearing, seeing fear that, hey, I may not understand this. And then going into, yeah, for a long time, for a very long time, companies got away with, yeah, we're compliant. Yeah, absolutely. We work with cybersecurity. We understand how important it is. Do you really? You really do. That so much so that you enabled multi-factor authentication just on your account. So
Yeah.
that in itself, you're bringing to light. And I think a lot of people are starting to say, now I got to do this. Now my feet are being held to the fire. Like, I really have to get this done. And I got to buckle down, whether I need to hire somebody or I have to actually get on and talk to my IT team to make sure they're implementing these security controls. That is really what's going on. So
Yeah.
that's why I said I think you nailed it.
Yeah. I mean, and I think the other thing too is we tell folks, start where you are, right? Just start where you are, start documenting what you do have, so that you can say and show proof that, we've got, again, going back to security awareness training, hey, we've got security awareness training done for all of our employees. Looking at what you do have in place, looking at your critical gaps, so that now when you do decide, to your point, to hire someone to come in to really help you, you know what you're working with. You may not understand all of it, but you've at least taken some baby steps. Let's think about it similar to when you do taxes, right? When you get ready to do your taxes, you don't just show up with, your forms. No, you need to show up and say, hey, especially business taxes, right? You got all your receipts, you got all your mileage, you got all of the things that is going to make your tax person their life a little bit easier and get through the process way faster, right? And so when we think about fast and speed, that's another piece of this is that there's going to be a bottleneck. There are only a certain number of auditors, but there's tons of companies that need to be assessed, right? So
Yes,
there's going to be a pay to get to the front of the line, right? Because
absolutely.
there's
Yep.
opportunities that are on the line that when you wait, time is not on your side, right? That
Not at all.
contract is not on your side. Government says you need to comply, right? And so, we encourage a lot of businesses, don't wait until the last minute. Start getting things together now, especially level ones. I mean, there's no reason why you can't start today. I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but hopefully anyone who listens to this podcast, they do decide to take it seriously as of the day of hearing this and decide to take some actions to move the needle closer to being done.
You said something that just sticks out to me. Start where you are. Like, just start where you are. That key word, start, but start where you are. And in the climate that we're in right now, it made me think about like the new year. A lot of folks have New Year's resolutions to maybe lose weight or eat better or something like that. And it's exactly what you said. You do have to start where you are. You literally need to start exactly where you are. You got to take account to, okay, what am I eating? How am I eating? Things like that. And then you got to start. You just got to start where you are. So that would probably be the biggest thing that I start to think about right now. Start where you are. Take account of everything that you have, what you do, cybersecurity wise. And if you're going to work with somebody, that's your starting point. So I think that's great advice. Great advice, especially when it comes to CMMC and trying to look at that portion. Now, there is another piece that you mentioned earlier around AI. That's another big subject that a lot of folks are trying to take on because innovation, right? You talked about innovation in cybersecurity. This is the innovation that a lot of folks have been waiting for. How can I include or how can I use AI to help my business be more efficient? But that cybersecurity piece, nobody really pays attention to that. Now, as that becomes more integrated in our business operations, as AI becomes more integrated in our business operations, what do you think some of the top security risks are that small and medium-sized businesses need to watch out for and mitigate? When we say mitigate, we mean try to solve those or make sure that they're not impactful against the business.
That's really a great question. When it comes to AI security, what we're really dealing with is something I don't think we've ever seen in how it's going to impact security, right? What makes AI challenging is how quickly the technology is evolving and being integrated into business operations across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially the thing to think about is, how is this going to impact your business, one, in adopting AI, but then two, how is it going to impact security operations? So the very thing that you are trying to adopt, if you don't adopt it with security in mind, it could be the very thing that puts you out of business.
Oof.
Think about that.
Oof, that hurts. That hurts because people are running to do it, running to adopt AI, but it could be the very thing that puts them out of business. That is powerful.
So, from my experience, the top risks could fall into a few categories. I'd say data exposure, model manipulation, AI poisoning. I mean, there's quite a few, but I think we can all agree, and I mentioned this earlier, that humans oftentimes are the weakest link, right? And when it comes to security, it happens all the time. We see it all the time. Obviously, folks are landing on the front page of the Washington Post with regularity over the last couple of years, or magazines or wherever, right? And that's what's scary. And so we're seeing cases where employees are feeding data into these models without really fully understanding that you just shouldn't be doing that, right? And so now it's putting your organization, especially when we're talking about private data, private information, at risk. Right. So now your organization is liable. And then two, when we're talking about model manipulation, finding ways to manipulate systems and corrupting data, corrupting systems. And now it impacts the decision-making process as well on those models.
So give any thought to that?
The training data, I mean, you're exploiting all the vulnerabilities. And that's what really adds even more gasoline to the fire. I think one of the scariest things that I've seen is AI-powered malware.
Oof.
Right? And so now it continues to improve its behavior to avoid detection. And so every time you learn more about it, it gets smarter, and it ends up just being even more elusive to you. So it's continuing to learn. That's
yikes.
Scary.
Yeah.
That
just
is
thinking about that.
Very scary. And the question is, how do we really mitigate some of these risks? And it really does start with policies. Again, people are the weakest link a lot of the time. Do you have policies in place? Do you have guardrails in place? Do you have monitoring and testing in place? Are you educating your team on what you should do and shouldn't do? I think one of the best things that organizations, especially if they can afford to do this, or there's even fractional folks that can fill this role, but hiring a chief AI officer, because now they're going to look at AI adoption through a very different lens. They're going to look at it in the same way you would any other business risk, and looking at how is it going to impact the organization as a whole, and not just this one piece. And so the role of whether it's a fractional chief AI officer, or someone that you literally bring in-house, that is their goal, to really look at how are we adopting AI, what are the tools that we're currently using that really even have AI built into them. As an example, Salesforce has different modules and things of that nature. I'm sure you're familiar with it. ServiceNow, a lot of these pieces of software that, whether it be in industry and or in federal government, have AI built into them, right? And so making sure that the role of the chief AI officer is to really make sure that you understand what we've adopted, how we've adopted it, how we're applying it, or implementing it, and where the guardrails, so that now he can hold space and hold the line on all of these different risks and vulnerabilities and threats that could potentially impact the organization.
A chief AI officer. I've seen some talking or some rumblings around that maybe this specific position needs to be enacted in certain organizations. Is that something that your organization offers?
Absolutely. We offer a fractional chief AI officer solution. And so we'll consult with organizations to help them really understand and come up with a roadmap and a blueprint of how they should be adopting and or integrating AI within their organization, because it's well beyond ChatGPT, Claude, all of these large language models that are readily available from free all the way up to $199. We've got these newer plans, right? And so now people are able to get into using AI for free. So but again, it's beyond that. And so when you have a chief AI officer that has a clear vision, like us with VisioneerIT, a clear vision of, what does current state versus future state really look like? Let's map that out. Let's understand where you're going, what you're looking to achieve, some of your goals, and let's also look at, again, security. We want to bake security in like the eggs. It's always in anything that we're doing. Let's understand, because that's really what the worst case scenario is, that you go out of business due to something that could easily have been prevented.
Right. I like that. That clear vision with VisioneerIT. I like that. I like how you put that in there. That's pretty clever. Pretty clever.
Thank you.
I got one last question for you. Now, with the rise of external cybersecurity threats, because we also have internal and external, but those external threats are just coming from everywhere now. How can a business effectively leverage what's called threat intelligence? Now, I'm going to ask you to define threat intelligence for us here for, let's say, government contractors who are not in IT. So if you could define threat intelligence and then how they can actually leverage that to be proactive against cyber attacks.
So let's level set on what external cybersecurity is with this simple question. How are you protecting your organization on platforms you don't own?
Perfect.
A lot of organizations would probably say, I don't know. What does that really mean on platforms I don't? They would probably, some of them had said, well, why would I care if it's on platforms I don't know? I've heard that response. And I said,
really?
Well, yes, I've heard that response, which is interesting to me. So I said, okay, let's think about your company and your brand and everything it kind of took you to get to where you are today. Let's think social, where your brand resides, where your company resides. Let's think social media, let's think dark web, let's think impersonation, let's think deep fakes. Let's also think about not just the company and the brand, let's also think about the executives attached to the brand, right? Yep. And so I'm sure you've seen where organizations have had their social media accounts impersonated. And so now, if that impersonation goes on for periods of time without them being aware, now you're garnering followers and people are engaging with that brand, thinking it really is you, whether it's you or the executive attached to it. And so over periods of time, things are fine. They're posting the same content you have on your page on that one page. And then all of a sudden there's some type of content that is posted that is less than ideal, right? So now you've sullied the reputation, because we're really talking about reputation management at the end of the day with this piece. It sullies the reputation of that company, of that brand, of that person. And so companies really need to be thinking more about how hackers think. Hacking into your network is like coming in through your front door. But when you're using other means to negatively impact the organization, they're going to start thinking about other places to look at, right? Yes. So again, that really is what we call gray space. That's that gray space that is unknown. We don't know really what it is. But the question here is how do you protect what you don't know you have? And how do you protect what you can't see, especially when it's not in your network?
True.
So
very true.
I think it's important for any, or whether it be a government contractor, an agency, to not just be thinking about what's in your network, on your network, who's trying to impact the network or physical assets. Let's think about the digital space. Let's think about gray space, spaces that you don't own, that your brand, your executives, et cetera, that information resides in that gray space that we also need to be aware of, because those are indicators. Those are almost like the breadcrumbs that almost lead to a potential hack of the network.
Yes.
Because so if you almost reverse engineer it and say, okay, if we look at this threat pattern and we look at everything leading up to a hack, if we reverse engineered it and we looked at maybe a year before or 6 months, whatever time period you want to put at, we would have seen these indicators, these little breadcrumbs and have this aha moment of, wow, I see how they got into the network.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and so it's taking a different path. It's not a direct path. It's like someone coming in through that small basement window that's only 12 inches by 24 inches that you didn't think anybody could fit into, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those things. So that's something or hacking of your Ring cameras, and there's all types of different things that people are doing that starts with these spaces that we're not really focused in on and not thinking about, because we believe a hacker has a hoodie on and all these other things and look a certain type of way, and
It's changed.
it's really, really changed. And so we need to be innovative in how we think about what hacks look like, hackers look like, social engineering looks like. Let's leverage tools. Let's even think about, community spaces where people are able to share information about what's happening in these gray spaces, because it is going to take everyone working as one cohesive unit to ensure that we're all safe, right?
Yep.
All of our information and data is safe. And so, peer networks and forums can be really helpful places to help you understand more about this gray space and what threat intelligence really does look like. That's just one idea I had.
Amazing, because it is going to take all of us, versus if something happens to a company and they just decide to go dark about it, be quiet about it, as there needs to be some sort of community there where we are looking at how we can all get better together.
Yeah.
And I said I had one last question for you, but I really have one more. Those were all the technical questions. This is a question that I ask everybody that's on the podcast, because we all are very busy. You're a CEO. You're not only charting the way of the company, you're also looking at ways to be innovative to your customers and your clients. What is it that you do to prevent burnout?
That's a great question. So I really value health and wellness. Working out is something that's really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Eating well is another thing that is very important, that really does give me the fuel to continue to get up and do what I do and be sharp at it as well. And so between working out, also meditation, I love reading. I know you probably can't see the ton of books I have against my wall here, but I spend time every morning reading as well as journaling. And so that allows me some time to really set my day and chart out what I want to do. So I have my fire list of 5 things that I'm going to accomplish throughout the day. I call it my hot list, my fire list. And again, starting with having gratitude in the morning and writing that out, journaling it out, and then getting to my top 5 things I need to accomplish for the day. It just really helps me stay creative. It helps me stay focused, and it helps me stay well, so that I can continue to lead my organization on to bigger and better things. We have a lot of folks that come to us with some really creative challenges and issues, And so we're always having to really think on the spot. And I have an amazing team that also shares the core values of the organization, which again is around health, wellness, and creativity. But then also within a ton of these books is information and knowledge that we try to share as a team, as a collective. So that's what I do in order to continue to do what I do every day. And I'd say the last thing, this is a big one, is I pour into my wife and she pours into me.
Yeah.
And
love to hear that.
I couldn't do what I do without her. She has definitely been an integral part of not just the growth of our organization, but even me as a person. So I'll end with that.
Love to hear that. Love to hear that. I mean, I absolutely. So it's not just one thing. There are many things that help you to stay balanced and help you to stay even as you lead that company. Something, that resonates with me. You said, eat well. You said, eat well. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying. Okay. I'm like the wing king. If it's some wings someplace, I will find them and I'm going to eat some of them. I may not feel my best afterwards, but I'm trying to get better at it, because it is really what you said. Eating well helps you to perform better, think better, and be more alert. So I'm working on that piece, but that's definitely something.
I'm going to hold you accountable on that one. Not to say I'm going to make you vegan like my wife and I, because we've been at it for a long time. But as we're growing some vegetables and things like that out back, I'll make sure I share some with you and some other tips that I'm sure my wife can give to me to give to you. So
that would be amazing. That would be amazing. Dr. Gavriel, thank you so much for today. The conversation was great. Like, aside from, even if the cameras are actually on, just having this conversation, I probably want to have some more dialogue around this anyway. And I know we're going to talk offline regardless. So
absolutely.
That's the best part of it. But great conversation, specifically around, what I saw on LinkedIn, because I know I wasn't the only one. And it was a lot of comments around CMMC being a scam. So I'm glad you saw that too.
Yeah.
And kind of felt the same way. As we wrap up, where's the best place for our listeners to find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, first name, last name. You can also reach out to me via our website, VisioneerIT.com or VisioneerITsecurity.com. And I would welcome any correspondence with folks who may have questions. And I look forward to hearing from anyone who wants to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Gavriel. As we wrap up, this is the CyberGov podcast, where we help government contractors and their cybersecurity strategy earn more revenue through building true partnerships and learning how to become more secure and stronger for the federal government. Thanks. You all have a great day, and we'll talk soon. Come listen to us on YouTube, LinkedIn, or your favorite podcasting app.